Imagine just for a second having the power to literally do anything. I mean, you could create universes from scratch. You could move mountains, bend reality to your whim.
Right, absolute power.
Exactly. But instead of showing off that sheer, earth-shattering force, you choose to whisper. You choose to act with such subtle, gentle movement that most people don't even notice you're doing anything at all.
Which is so countercultural for us today.
It really is. And that is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're so glad you're here with us. Today, we're going to look at a totally counterintuitive take on what true power actually means.
Yeah, it's a completely different paradigm.
And we're pulling our insights today from a 20th century manual for the soul. It's called Divine Intimacy and was written by a Carmelite friar, Father Gabriel of St. Mary Magdalen, O.C.D.
And just to set the stage for you, if you're following along in the text, we are currently situated in volume 4 of this work.
Right, which shifts the focus a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does, yeah. Volume 4 really leans into the larger doctrinal arc of the divine perfections and the theological virtues. It's heavy stuff, but so beautiful.
So specifically, we're going to unpack Meditation 240 today. It's titled Divine Omnipotence.
And the core doctrine here, the real mission of our deep dive today, is to understand that God's omnipotence is not just some vague, abstract, arbitrary power.
Like a cosmic muscle flex.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not that at all. His omnipotence is entirely inseparable from his infinite goodness. It's his goodness and his wise action working together.
Okay, let's unpack that because I think that's where people get tripped up right out of the gate.
Oh, for sure.
When we hear the word omnipotence, our minds immediately default to images of, like, a cosmic dictator, or at the very least, just raw, unchecked energy.
Right, which sounds a little terrifying, honestly.
It really does. But you're saying this meditation argues that power and goodness are literally the exact same thing in this context.
They are. And to really grasp why, we have to look at the theological foundation of how God's nature actually works.
Okay, lay it on us.
Well, in human beings, our traits are fragmented. You know, you can be a very powerful person, but lack goodness.
Unfortunately, we see that all the time.
Exactly. Or, on the flip side, you can be an incredibly good, kind person, but have absolutely no power to change your circumstances.
Right, because we possess these traits as separate accessories, or like add-ons to who we are.
Yes, but in this framework, God doesn't have goodness or have power. He is goodness and he is power.
Oh, wow. So his attributes are actually his essence.
Precisely. Therefore, it is metaphysically impossible for his power to ever operate outside of his perfectly wise, loving goodness. God can do all that he wills without any limitations whatsoever.
Because whatever he wills is inherently good.
Right. His omnipotence is completely at the service of his infinite goodness. In fact, the text emphasizes that his power is his infinite goodness in action. It's so perfect that it's capable of drawing good even from evil.
Understanding that fundamentally changes how you relate to the concept of an almighty creator.
It really does.
I mean, it's not about being crushed by authority anymore. It's about being enveloped by a power that only wants your ultimate good.
Which is a very comforting thought.
It is. But how does that actually play out in reality? Because when I think about human effort, even when it's really well-intentioned, it's just so messy.
It's incredibly messy.
I was trying to come up with an analogy for this. Think about a master human builder. Even the most skilled architect in the world, say they're building a massive cathedral, what do they need?
They need materials.
Right. They need raw materials, they need years of time, and they need so much physical fatigue. Building requires friction. You're constantly wrestling against the limitations of physics and gravity and the materials themselves.
Human power is always about adapting pre-existing things through sheer force of will.
Exactly. But divine power, as Father Gabriel describes it, is entirely unique.
Yeah.
God doesn't require raw materials or sweat.
No, his mere word is operative and effective.
Which is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
He creates the universe out of nothing in a single instant. He just speaks, and it is.
It's the absolute absence of constraint. But, you know, the doctrine gets even more nuanced here.
How so?
Well, it's one thing to say God can effortlessly create a galaxy out of nothing, but it's another thing entirely to look at how he interacts with humanity.
Because we have free will.
Exactly. Despite having this absolute infinite power, God rules and directs humanity according to his good pleasure without ever prejudicing human liberty.
That feels like a paradox. How do you have absolute control but not violate someone's freedom?
That's the genius of divine omnipotence. Human power usually has to coerce or force someone's will to get what it wants, but God's power is so profoundly perfect that it works from within.
So he transforms us without steamrolling us.
Right. The meditation talks about how he uses his power to take us when we're broken, when we're children of sin, and gently transform us into adopted sons who actually share in his divine life.
That is just a staggering thought. It shifts the whole conversation from looking at, like a telescope, to marvel at God's physical power, to looking at our own transformed interior life to marvel at his spiritual power.
It's a much more intimate way of understanding omnipotence.
It is. But this smoothly transitions us into a reality check in the text that is, quite frankly, a little jarring.
Yeah, the text doesn't pull any punches here.
It really doesn't. It argues that by our very nature, only God possesses power. And we possess none. Zero.
It's a radical shift in perspective.
And it points directly to that famous line from Jesus in the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 5. He says, "Without me, you can do nothing."
And we really need to pause on that word nothing, because Father Gabriel means it quite literally.
Right. It's not just a poetic way of saying, I help you be your best self.
Not at all. In this spiritual framework, without the continuous active concurrence of divine omnipotence, you couldn't perform the slightest physical act.
Wait, really? The slightest act?
Yes, you couldn't even formulate a single passing thought. We are radically, profoundly dependent on God for every microsecond of our existence.
Okay, hold on. I have to stop you there. I want to push back a little on behalf of listeners.
You go for it.
If I am reading this text, and I'm someone who is actively trying to improve my life, maybe I'm trying to be more patient with my kids, or I'm trying to overcome a bad habit, and I read that I have this radical impotence,
Right.
that I am literally incapable of formulating a single good thought without God.
Yeah.
My immediate reaction is, well, why bother trying at all?
It feels like a massive demotivator.
Exactly. Doesn't confronting this total lack of power naturally lead to discouragement? I mean, doesn't it just breed a sense of spiritual worthlessness?
That is probably the most common spiritual hurdle when people encounter this doctrine. It feels like a blow to our dignity.
So how does the meditation resolve that?
Father Gabriel is very clear here. This truth is absolutely not meant to discourage us. In fact, it is meant to be the ultimate psychological relief. It's meant to keep us deeply, safely humble.
Relief. How is realizing you have zero power a relief?
Think about the modern culture you and I live in. We are constantly bombarded by the message that everything rests on our shoulders.
Oh yeah, the hustle culture.
The hustle culture, the self-made myth. It creates this crushing anxiety because we are finite beings trying to carry the weight of infinite expectations.
That makes a lot of sense. We're basically buckling under pressure we were never meant to carry.
Exactly. What this meditation does is invite you to put that burden down. When you realize that your power finds its principle only in God, you stop placing the burden of your own perfection on your frail shoulders.
I see. It's admitting I actually can't fix everything and I was never designed to.
Precisely. And the text references St. Paul here, specifically 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 5. Paul says, our sufficiency is from God.
So all our sufficiency, all our actual capability is a gift.
Yes. And here is the beautiful resolution to that fear of worthlessness. The text explains that God actually delights in communicating his power in greater measure to those who are most convinced of their own impotence.
Oh, that is fascinating.
Right. When you are full of your own ego and self-reliance, there's no room for his grace. But when you are empty of that self-reliance, you become the perfect vessel for his omnipotence.
Which brings us perfectly to the Carmelite connection in all of this.
Yes. You can't talk about Carmelite spirituality without bringing her up.
Right. Because you can talk about these theological concepts all day, but seeing them lived out is entirely different. The text draws heavily on the perspective of Saint Teresa of fiat.
A true titan in the Carmelite tradition.
Absolute titan. And what's so interesting to me about her is that she wasn't some passive, quiet figure who just sat in the room all day. She was a fiery reformer.
She was a powerhouse.
She traveled all over Spain. She founded dozens of monasteries, dealt with immense political pushback. Yet her core internal realization, the engine driving all that activity, was this deep acknowledgement of her own weakness.
Her famous disposition is so beautiful. She would say, essentially, that Teresa alone can do nothing, but with Jesus, she can do all things.
She didn't deny her weakness for a single second.
No, she leaned into it. She leaned her entire weight upon the omnipotence of God. And this is deeply rooted in the scriptural paradox we see in St. Paul's writings.
Right. I'm thinking of 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 28. Paul writes about how God intentionally chooses the base and contemptible things of the world to accomplish his magnificent works.
And why does he do that? So that the source of the power is unmistakable.
Exactly. It's like if you hand a master painter a perfectly crafted, expensive brush, you might praise the brush along with the artist.
Right, they share the glory.
But if you hand that same master a broken stick and they still paint a masterpiece, all the glory goes to the artist.
That's a great way to put it. The weaker the instrument, the more clearly the genius of the divine artisan shines through.
Which is why Paul can make that incredibly bold claim in Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. I can do all things in him who strengthens me.
The secret of the great saints, like Saint Teresa, is that their extraordinary accomplishments were never the result of extraordinary natural abilities.
It was their reliance on divine omnipotence.
Exactly.
Okay, but this raises a really crucial practical question for you, the listener, right now.
Let's hear it.
Let's talk about a random Tuesday morning. The alarm goes off. You have a stressful meeting at work. Your kids are acting up. You have personal flaws you're trying to work on.
Real life stuff?
Real life. If it is true that our success depends entirely on divine omnipotence and our own human efforts are radically impotent, how do you live that out without just staying in bed?
Right, why even try?
Yeah. If God does all the heavy lifting, shouldn't we simply remain idle and wait passively for God to act? I mean, why send the email? Why have the difficult conversation?
It's so tempting to fall into that trap, to just float along and expect God to magically orchestrate your life. But Father Gabriel is incredibly firm on this point.
He doesn't let us off the hook.
Not at all. He clarifies that we absolutely must not remain idle. We are called to do everything within our human power.
Okay, so the effort is definitely required. We still have to do the work.
You have to send the email, apply yourself to your duties, strive to build virtue. Active cooperation is essential.
But what changes then? If the physical action looks exactly the same, what is the spiritual key here?
The key is entirely about where you place your hope.
Where you place your hope.
Yes. You must work diligently, using all your human faculties, but you must never place your hope for success in those human efforts.
Wow. Okay, that is a massive distinction.
It changes everything. You don't trust in your own cleverness, your own stamina, or your own human means. The meditation points out that the root of so many of our failures in our apostolate or our growth in virtue is precisely this.
That we rely too much on ourselves.
Exactly. We rely on human means rather than relying on the help of Almighty God.
So we act, we plan, we serve, but we intentionally detach our expectation of success from the effort itself. We transfer all that trust over to God's power.
You're providing the material, your act of cooperation, but you are letting Him provide the fire.
That completely changes the psychological approach to a difficult task.
Because if the ultimate success relies on His infinite goodness rather than your finite capability, you don't have to panic when you hit a wall.
So acknowledging your weakness is not a dead end.
No, it is actually the very doorway to experiencing God's omnipotent goodness in your daily duties.
It's almost like learning to swim.
How so?
Well, if you thrash around trying to use your own chaotic power to stay afloat, you just sink faster. You exhaust yourself.
Right.
But the moment you stop fighting the water, acknowledge your inability to hold yourself up and just lean back, the water itself carries you.
That is a perfect analogy.
You still have to kick and move your arms to get anywhere. That's the active cooperation, but you're trusting the environment to hold you up, not your own trashing.
You are cooperating with the reality of the water. And in this theological context, that environment is an omnipotent power entirely synonymous with absolute goodness.
So as we synthesize all of this for you listening today, let's look at the bigger picture of what we've covered.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but it's so rich. We started with this mind-bending concept that true divine power isn't about sheer force. It is literally God's goodness in action.
Right. They're inseparable.
And we looked at how recognizing our own radical weakness, our impotence, isn't supposed to crush us. It's the doorway to humility and freedom.
It frees us from the unbearable weight of self-reliance.
Exactly. And finally, we saw how we are called to actively cooperate with God in our daily lives, doing the hard work, but placing our hope entirely in His omnipotence, not our human means.
It reorients your entire approach to both your struggles and your successes.
It really does. Before we go, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over, something to explore in your own interior life.
Yeah, I think this is a beautiful way to end. Consider for a moment how right at this exact second, your very existence, every breath you take, every small effort you make toward virtue, is being actively held in existence by God's omnipotent hand.
He is actively sustaining you.
Yes, a hand that never tires, and a hand that is guided entirely by love. If his power is simply his goodness in action, then you're being held by pure goodness right now.
What a beautiful reality to rest in. We want to invite you now into a brief moment of silence and mental prayer. Take a deep breath, acknowledge your own weakness, and confidently ask God to use his almighty power to convert your heart entirely to his love. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into divine intimacy. Keep seeking, keep trusting, and we will catch you next time.